Check those receipts. More than $7,000 for a Subway sandwich? What?
Before you order that sandwich, there are 3 things they don't tell you about what you're putting in your body right now. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at Subway the same way again. We're covering 3 main things. First, the sodium situation that most people have absolutely no idea about. Second, what actually goes into that bread and meat before it gets to your sandwich. And third, how to make smarter choices if you still decide to eat there. Because, look, Subway is everywhere, it's fast, and sometimes it's your only option. You deserve to know what you're really getting, though. That 6-inch turkey sandwich that seems pretty healthy has 810 milligrams of sodium in it. You might be thinking, okay, that's just a number, but the American Heart Association says you should eat no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, and ideally, they want you closer to 1,500. That single 6-inch turkey sub, before you add any cheese, any sauce, any extras, is already more than a third of your daily limit. If you go for a footlong, you need to double those numbers, which puts you at 1,620 milligrams from one sandwich. Some of their Subway series sandwiches are absolutely loaded with salt in ways that seem almost deliberate. The Beast, which is a 6-inch sandwich, has 2,080 milligrams of sodium, which is almost your entire daily limit in half a sandwich. Order it as a footlong, and you're looking at over 4,000 milligrams, nearly double what you're supposed to have in an entire day from one meal. Most people don't realize where all that sodium is coming from because it's not just the meat, though processed meats definitely contribute. A 6-inch piece of their hearty multigrain bread has 350 milligrams of sodium, and that's the lowest option. Italian herbs and cheese bread, which tastes amazing, adds 580 milligrams. The Everything Bagel seasoned bread packs 710 milligrams of sodium before you've added a single ingredient to your sandwich. The bread alone can give you almost a third of your daily sodium limit, and we haven't even talked about the protein yet, or the cheese, or especially the sauces. 1 tablespoon of their buffalo sauce adds 350 milligrams of sodium. Mustard adds 170. Even their peppercorn ranch adds 100 milligrams. These little squirts that take 2 seconds to add to your sandwich can push you from a reasonable meal into sodium overload territory. Wraps are even worse because a lot of people think wraps are healthier than bread. The wrap itself starts at 440 milligrams of sodium, which is higher than most of their breads. A Hotshot Italiano wrap comes in at 2,710 milligrams of sodium for the whole thing, more sodium than you should eat in an entire day from one wrap. And people order these thinking they're making a lighter choice. There was this court case in Ireland back in 2020 that's actually pretty revealing. Ireland's Supreme Court ruled that Subway's bread couldn't legally be called bread for tax purposes because it had too much sugar. This wasn't about safety, it was about tax classification. But when a court looks at your bread and says it doesn't meet the legal definition of bread because of sugar content, that should make you pause. Current U.S. nutrition information shows that a 6-inch piece of bread has anywhere from 2 to 5 grams of sugar, and while that might not sound like much, you're eating what's supposed to be bread, not a dessert. We need to talk about processed meat, because this is where things get really uncomfortable. A lot of Subway's most popular sandwiches are built around cured and processed meats like ham, salami, pepperoni, bologna, and even some of their turkey products. The World Health Organization's Cancer Research Group looked at processed meat and classified it as carcinogenic to humans in their Group 1 classification, which means there's strong evidence linking it to cancer, specifically colorectal cancer. The research shows that eating about 2 ounces of processed meat per day, which is roughly a few slices, increases your risk of colorectal cancer compared to eating none. One sandwich isn't going to hurt you, but if you're eating processed meat sandwiches regularly, day after day, week after week, you're increasing your long-term health risks, and the more you eat, the higher the risk goes. There's this whole category of food called ultra-processed foods, and a lot of what goes into fast food sandwiches falls into this category. Recent research has connected high consumption of ultra-processed foods with a bunch of bad health outcomes, including heart disease, metabolic problems, and even increased mortality risk. The science on this is still developing, and some researchers debate the details, but the overall trend is pretty clear that the more ultra-processed food you eat, the worse your health outcomes tend to be. You've got bread that's higher in sodium and sugar than you'd expect, processed meats that carry long-term health risks, and sauces and toppings that can turn a decent sandwich into a sodium bomb. What makes this even more complicated is how these ingredients are stored and handled before they ever reach your sandwich. Most Subway locations receive deliveries of prepackaged meats and vegetables that have been sitting in distribution centers, and while that's standard for the fast food industry, it means your supposedly fresh ingredients might be several days old by the time they're put on your sandwich. The vegetables are usually delivered pre-cut and packaged, which is convenient for the franchise owner because it reduces labor costs and speeds up service, but it also means those tomatoes and lettuce have been exposed to more processing and more opportunities for quality degradation. Fresh-cut vegetables start losing nutrients pretty much immediately after cutting, and while they're kept cold, they're definitely not at peak freshness by the time you're eating them. This is part of why the Eat Fresh slogan has always been a bit misleading, because fresh in the fast food context doesn't mean the same thing. It means when you're shopping at a farmer's market or even a regular grocery store. The employee training situation adds another layer to all of this, because most Subway workers are getting minimal training, often just a few hours of shadowing another employee before they're expected to handle food on their own. High turnover is standard in fast food, and when you've got workers who might only be there for a few months before moving on, the consistency of food handling practices suffers. Some employees are meticulous about changing gloves and following food safety protocols, while others are just trying to get through their shift as quickly as possible. That inconsistency matters when you're talking about food safety and cross-contamination, especially for people with allergies or dietary restrictions. Back in 2014, there was this huge outcry about a chemical called azotocarbonamide, and people started calling it the yoga mat chemical because it's also used in foam products. The internet went crazy over this, with food bloggers writing about it, petitions flying around, and people genuinely freaked out. Subway eventually removed it from their bread, even though it was actually approved by the FDA at the time. But public pressure was so intense that they decided it wasn't worth the fight. Then there was the tuna situation, where a lawsuit in 2021 claimed that Subway's tuna wasn't actually tuna. Some media outlets even did DNA testing, and the results were confusing. But DNA testing on cooked and processed fish is notoriously unreliable because the DNA breaks down during cooking, and the testing methods matter a lot. In July 2023, the case was dismissed with prejudice, which means it can't be filed again, and Subway has maintained all along that they serve 100% wild-caught tuna. The lawsuit is over, but a lot of people still remember the headlines and have doubts. There was also this whole thing about footlong sandwiches not actually being a foot long that turned into a class action lawsuit going on for years. Eventually, a settlement was proposed, but a federal appeals court threw it out in 2017, calling it utterly worthless, so that saga just kind of ended without any real changes. What all these controversies tell us is that Subway has had a rough time with public perception, and even when the legal cases don't stick, the damage to their reputation lingers because people remember the scary headlines but don't always follow up to see how things ended. If you have food allergies or celiac disease, Subway publishes an allergen guide with a very important warning that they explicitly state they cannot guarantee menu items are 100% gluten-free or free from cross-contact with allergens, even if a product like their gluten-free bread is made in a gluten-free facility. Everything is prepared in a shared space with shared equipment, which matters if you're someone who needs strict avoidance of certain allergens. Even if you order the gluten-free roll, It's getting cut on the same board where regular bread was just cut. The knife might have been used on regular bread, and the employee's gloves might have touched regular bread. Sesame is now the 9th major allergen in the United States as of January 2023, and some of Subway's breads, like the Everything Bagel, seasoned one, contain sesame. If you have a sesame allergy, you need to ask specifically about this before ordering, because that cross-contact warning applies here too. Subway is a franchise business, which means almost all of their locations are owned and operated by individual business owners, not by the corporate company. Your experience at one Subway can be completely different from your experience at another one across town, because one franchisee might run a super tight operation with excellent food safety practices, fresh ingredients, and well-trained staff, while another might be cutting corners to save money. This explains why some Subways are great and others are terrible, since it's not one company running all the stores, but thousands of independent business owners making their own decisions about staffing, training, and quality control. Subway has also been shrinking in the United States, with multiple sources reporting that they closed 631 U.S. restaurants in 2024, bringing their U.S. store count below 20,000 for the first time in about 2 decades. Meanwhile, they're still growing internationally, but here in the States, they're pulling back, which tells you something about how Americans are feeling about the brand. In 2024, Subway was acquired by Rourke Capital, a private equity firm that owns a bunch of other restaurant brands, and the new owners are trying to modernize the chain and push growth. You might notice changes at your local store as part of that strategy, but modernizing the brand doesn't automatically fix the nutrition problems or the processed meat issues we've been talking about. Why are these sandwiches so high in sodium, though, and why is so much of the meat processed? It comes down to the business model, because Subway's whole thing has always been about volume and convenience, which means they need ingredients that are shelf-stable, consistent across thousands of locations, and cheap enough to allow for competitive pricing. Fresh, minimally processed ingredients don't fit that model as well, since sodium is a preservative that helps food last longer and stay stable while also making things taste better, which keeps people coming back. Processed meats are easier to ship, store, and handle than fresh cooked proteins, so from a business operations perspective, the way Subway does things makes total sense. From a nutrition and health perspective, though, it creates all the problems we've been discussing. The franchise model adds another layer because franchise owners are paying fees to corporate, covering their own rent and labor costs, and trying to make a profit on thin margins. When corporate pushes promotions like the $5 footlong, which people loved, franchise owners sometimes push back because those deals aren't profitable for them at their cost structure. And this tension between corporate strategy and franchise profitability affects everything from pricing to ingredient quality to whether your local store participates in national promotions. Compare this to competitors like Chipotle, which has a different model using a simpler menu, fresher ingredients, and more corporate-owned stores, though they also charge more. Jersey Mike's focuses on freshly sliced meats and higher quality ingredients, and again, charges more. Panera Bread has positioned itself as a premium fast casual option. All of these chains have their own issues, but they've made different trade-offs than Subway. Subway tried to compete by emphasizing customization and the perception of freshness with their Eat Fresh slogan, but fresh and customizable doesn't automatically mean healthy or high quality. You can build a terrible sandwich at Subway just as easily as you can build a decent one, and the difference is in knowing what to choose. If you're going to eat at Subway, always start with a 6-inch, not a foot-long, because the nutrition numbers double when you go foot-long, and most people don't need that much food in one sitting anyway. If you want more volume, get a salad or ask about their no-bread bowls, though be aware that meats and dressings still carry sodium. For bread, stick with hearty multigrain at 350 milligrams sodium, or artisan Italian at 380 milligrams, and avoid Italian herbs and cheese at 580 milligrams, and definitely avoid the everything seasoned bread at 710 milligrams if you're trying to watch your sodium. Wraps aren't automatically healthier because the wrap itself is 440 milligrams of sodium before you add anything, which is often higher than bread. Grilled chicken comes in at 570 milligrams sodium for a 6-inch build your own sandwich. Rotisserie-style chicken is 750 milligrams, and oven-roasted turkey is 810 milligrams, so these are your better options. On the flip side, steak with American cheese is 1,050 milligrams, cold-cut combo is 1,010 milligrams, and meatball marinara is 1,130 milligrams. Remember what we said about processed meats and cancer risk, so if you're eating there regularly, lean toward the chicken options. Those Subway series sandwiches with names and numbers might seem convenient, but many of them are sodium nightmares. The beast at 2,080 milligrams for a 6-inch should honestly be called the salt bomb. And if you order these, you're essentially giving up control over the sodium content because they come with specific combinations of meat, cheese, and sauces. Sauce is where a lot of people blow their sodium budget without realizing it, and oil and vinegar has 0 milligrams of sodium while light mayo is only 65 milligrams, so those are your best bets. Mustard adds 170 milligrams, which is significant. Parmesan vinaigrette adds 140. Peppercorn ranch adds 100. Buffalo sauce adds a whopping 350 milligrams, and sriracha is 240. If you ask for extra sauce or multiple sauces, which a lot of people do, you can easily add 500 milligrams of sodium just from condiments. Load up on vegetables because they're essentially free in terms of sodium and calories, so ask for extra lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, green peppers, onions, whatever you like. This adds volume, fiber, and nutrients without adding salt, and if you want avocado, get the sliced version which has 0 milligrams sodium instead of the smashed version which has 130 milligrams per serving. Skip the soup unless your sandwich was super low in sodium, because their soups are salt bombs. Chicken noodle has 1,160 milligrams in an 8-ounce serving. Broccoli and cheddar has 1,250 milligrams, and tomato basil parmesan has 1,040 milligrams. If you already had an 800 milligram sandwich and you add an 1,100 milligram soup, you've just consumed almost 2,000 milligrams of sodium in one meal. A 6-inch grilled chicken on hearty multigrain bread with oil and vinegar and as many vegetables as you want gets you around 570 to 600 milligrams of sodium before any extras, which is reasonable. A 6-inch oven roasted turkey on artisan Italian bread with just mayo and vinegar, no mustard, means the mayo adds 65 milligrams and you're still in a manageable range. A 6-inch veggie delete on hearty multigrain with oil and vinegar gets you around 360 to 390 milligrams of sodium, which is basically the baseline, and if you're trying to save sodium for later meals, this is a smart play. For comparison, if you did 6-inch turkey on Italian herbs and cheese bread with American cheese, mayo, and mustard, you'd be looking at something like 810 plus 580 plus 50 plus 65 plus 170, which is over 1,600 milligrams just from those choices. Jersey Mike's freshly slices their meats in store, and while they're still salty, they generally use higher quality ingredients. Firehouse Subs has a more limited menu but tends to have better quality control. Panera Bread is pricier but offers more fresh options with better transparency. Chipotle isn't exactly the same category, but if you're looking for customizable fast food with fresher ingredients, it's worth considering. You could also just make sandwiches at home by buying good bread from a bakery, getting some roasted turkey or chicken breast from the deli counter, and adding your own vegetables, which saves money while controlling exactly what goes in. A lot of people don't do this because it takes time and planning, but if you're eating sandwiches multiple times a week, it might be worth it. The bigger lesson is about being an informed consumer, because fast food companies, including Subway, are not trying to deceive you since their nutrition information is publicly available, ingredient lists are posted, and allergen warnings are there. They're also not going out of their way to make sure you understand the implications of what you're eating, though, So it's on you to look at the numbers and make decisions that align with your health goals. This applies beyond Subway since every fast food restaurant has similar issues where they all use sodium, sugar, and processing to make food stable, cheap, and tasty. They all have menu items that look healthy but aren't, and they all make it easy to consume way more calories, sodium, and processed ingredients than you should. The more you understand about how this industry works, the better choices you can make across the board. Learning to read nutrition labels and understanding what sodium levels actually mean in practical terms is a skill that'll serve you at every restaurant, not just Subway. Same thing with understanding processed meats and cancer risk or knowing about ultra-processed foods, because this isn't just about one chain, but about having the knowledge to navigate modern food choices. If you do eat at Subway, look at your local store's health inspection scores because most counties and cities post these online. A well-run franchise will have clean inspections with minimal violations, while a poorly run one might have recurring problems with food handling, temperature control, or cleanliness. This information is public, and it's worth checking if you're a regular customer. Pay attention when you're in the store too, and watch how the employees handle food. Do they change gloves between sandwiches? Do they clean the cutting board? And do ingredients look fresh, or are vegetables wilted and brown at the edges? These observations tell you a lot about whether that particular franchise is worth your business. Almost all locations are independently owned, so corporate sets standards, but individual owners decide how seriously to follow them. If your local Subway consistently fails inspections or has questionable practices, there's probably another location nearby that's better run, or maybe that's a sign to just choose a different restaurant entirely. Sodium is the main issue at Subway, where many menu items have more salt than most people realize, and it's coming from bread, meat, cheese, and especially sauces. A 6-inch sandwich can range from around 350 milligrams for a veggie sandwich to over 2,000 milligrams for some of their signature builds, and footlongs double those numbers. Processed meats carry long-term health risks when eaten regularly since the WHO classifies them as carcinogenic, and the research backs that up. Bread has more sugar than you'd expect, as that Irish court case highlighted, and allergen cross-contact is a real concern for people who need strict avoidance. The franchise model means quality and experience vary dramatically between locations, and previous controversies like the yoga mat chemical and the tuna lawsuit have been resolved, but they've left lasting skepticism about the brand. Choose a 6-inch over a footlong, pick lower sodium breads like hearty multigrain or artisan Italian, go for grilled chicken or turkey instead of processed meats like salami or pepperoni, use oil and vinegar instead of creamy or spicy sauces, load up on vegetables, and skip the soup. If you're watching your health closely, maybe just skip Subway entirely and choose a competitor with better ingredient quality, or make your own sandwiches at home. The key is making informed choices instead of just ordering what sounds good, because those menu boards are designed to sell you food, not to optimize your health. The more you know about what's really in these sandwiches, the better decisions you can make for yourself and your family.